grateful to have you folks back with us. This is the Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group meeting, our standard meeting on the second Saturday of each month. And today is the 14th of September of 2024. We've just had a wonderful presentation by Rick Klemetson on DNA and what he's been doing in helping people find their ancestors and their trees and making sure that your tree is correct and so on, and a lot of questions afterwards. And now he's going to show us more examples in the class period about what he has done in helping people find their adoptees, for example, and finding their birth parents, plus answer questions that many of us might have. So if you haven't watched the first part, you might want to log on to either Facebook or onto our Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group YouTube channel, where the programs will be there, the videos. In the meantime, today, right now, we'll turn the time over to Rick Klemetson. He's had a lot of experience with this and done all kinds of good things with it. And we'll turn the time over to him to take from now until noon or however long it lasts for questions up until noon. So Rick, you're on.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and then please keep the questions coming in. If you guys can relay those through the chat window. I wanted to show behind the scenes a little bit. This utility right here is DNA Painter, and it does a number of things, but in the tools area, there are several tools. The first one is the shared CM project. And then there's a what are the odds? Here's a what are the odds plus, and then, segment painters and so on. So let's go ahead and do the shared CM project. Now, a question came up on what centimorgans were, and it's percentage. It has to do with how quickly the DNA changes. And so they divided up the DNA, and a parent child shares about 3,400 centimorgans. Siblings would be about 2,600. A grandchild, about 1,700. But then as you start getting further down, you run into an issue where that amount of shared DNA can be several different ways. So if we did 1,700 up here, you can see that it could be a grandparent, an aunt, uncle, a half sibling on the very, very low end of a sibling, but a niece, nephew, or grandchild. So you have to combine the amount of shared DNA with other parts of the person's tree to see, if the person's younger than you, they're not your grandparent. So you could kind of eliminate some of the things based on their age, on how they might best fit in. So this tool is very helpful where you can put in the amount of shared DNA, and down it'll show you the percentage chance it is on which of the different relationships. And then what the highlighted ones here would help you focus in on what the relationships could be. So that's a fun tool. Okay. Then Marilyn, could you remind me, there's another question we had gotten into but we got stopped right at the very end. If you remember what that is? If not, I'll go ahead with this.
One of the questions was, unmute. One of the questions that we had was, what's the relationship of Ancestry to this? You mentioned Ancestry Pro or something like that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, let's review that, because that Pro is a brand new thing. And a couple weeks ago, Ancestry gave it to everyone for a week or two, or for a couple days, so that they could hopefully become addicted to it and sign up for it. So those of you that have a free LDS account, it includes almost everything, but it does not include the Pro features. And so it is about $40 for every 6 months or something along that point. So Ancestry is just trying to do a number of things where they can get extra revenue from you. And they didn't give the Pro features away for free. Now, in your tree, there's different Pro features that are part of working on your tree. But here in DNA, when you look at a match, then you have your shared matches. So you'll be able to click on your shared matches and it would bring up the list of people that both of you match. But with the pro version, it also shows you how much information this other person shares with them. So you see this column right here for my uncle, and it shows how how much DNA he shares. And it's like, this is my sister, and then it's his niece. And so it shows that how much DNA he shares with those matches. So that can help you solve some mysteries because so you'll get matches right here. But if you have no insight into how much they share, you wouldn't know how that match might be related. And they might be a parent or a sister or a child. And if you knew that, that would help fit that into the tree so much better because sometimes the other match has a tree where the person you're looking at doesn't link to. And so it helps put things in context and narrows it down. So if you're heavy into research at a time, you may want to sign up for the subscription during that time that you're working on that. Okay.
Good. Thank you. Yeah.
Rick, I'm wondering, since we're recording this, if you want to talk a minute about DNA research angels.
Okay, so there's a number of groups. One of the first ones that started was a decade ago called DNA Detectives, and so it's a private Facebook group, and they have volunteers, and a lot of the people are in the midst of searching, but there's also a lot of people that have either been through searches themselves and now know quite a bit, or just are researchers that are interested. And so you can join, and a lot of times as you explain what you're searching, what you know, what you're searching for, the people will both teach you what to look for, kind of like what I've talked about today. And then frequently somebody will volunteer to help you with your search. Now, you may not stay with that person the whole time through the process, but they may get you further along and they may take you all the way to the finish line, or they might help you get very well organized. And then another researcher may step in to help take you on to that next step. So some of the people I helped had been helped by others to get to that point, and then I took them to the finish line. And others I got started, and then we weren't finding anything, so it kind of my focus went on to helping a brand new person, and they found somebody else to help them get to the finish line. So it's a great way to find researchers, and the DNA Search Angels do this for free. And so it's a great resource to help people learn the information and possibly learn how to solve what they're looking for.
Where do you find the search angels? How do you find one?
So there's on DNA Detectives is one of the private Facebook groups. You can find them and you could request to join and explain who you are. But there's also other Facebook groups, and I don't have them DNA. There's other Facebook groups like here's Search Angels. There's DNAangels.org. So if you just do Search Angels. Now, some of these charge money, so not all of these are free. So it just depends on what your needs are. But a lot of these, there's a lot of them out there that will provide search for free.
And where are you looking at that list? Is that just a Google list or what?
Yeah, I just did a Google. I just Googled DNA Search Angels.
And then
So-
I had mentioned there's also a group that provide emotional support.
Yes.
And they
Yeah, I forget what their names is. I looked at their stuff
Right.
before, but
yeah. But the DNA
Okay.
angels could help you find them.
Yep. And then here's just
yes.
an old article from 2019, but CC Moore, who's been on a number of TV shows on DNA, helped set up this DNA Detectives many years ago. And that's the one I was mentioning, but there's other groups also.
Ritz Tech, they did a beautiful presentation on what they do and how they do and their successes in that. And that would be a worthwhile video to watch if you're interested in something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those Roots Tech videos are all available. Just go to rootstech.org
Yeah.
and type in DNA or the video, and you'll find one that just Marilyn just mentioned.
So
Yeah.
Don also asked the question, what's a centimorgan?
Okay, good. So centimorgan, the one of the original discoverers of DNA, his last name was Morgan, and his protege wanted to honor his the mentor with that naming that after him. Uh, and so that when they wanted to put in how frequently um, the DNA might change, um, and here I'm going to bring up a quick Google search right here. And so centimorgan was named in honor of geneticist Thomas Hunt Morgan by his student Alfred Henry Sudegard. Um, okay, and so that's the origin of where that came from is centimorgan or CM. And then on some of the sites they'll do a percentage. So um, parent, 50% of your DNA would come from your parent. So that'd be 3,400. Altogether, you have 6,800 in that ballpark. So if a sibling would share a certain percentage on average, and 1,700 would be a grandparent, would be 25% of the overall centimorgans. But that's where that came from.
Why,
I
why
like,
such weird numbers like 1,600 and 1,700 and so on? Why not 100?
They divided up all the segments across all of your DNA and added them up, and they came up with about 3,400 segments, and it has to do with the frequency, the probability of change which in that. So they're not a centimorgan is not exactly the same length, but it's the probability that DNA would change across that.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
we had
Yep.
also gone into your chart creator website.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I was just curious where do you begin with creating a chart to help you with what you had said? Sounds to me that this is kind of your research notes in a way that you're trying to put your.
Right. I really like that. So I usually research in my tree, but then let me create a brand new one, create a new one. So I'm just doing a blank diagram.
Okay.
And saving that. And then, so this is what the screen looks like when it first comes up, just a blank canvas.
Okay.
Over here on the left, I have a rounded rectangle. So I'm just going to drag that right here. And we'll just, put their name and possibly their birth year, and, their birth years. Then, since this is a male, a lot of times I'll give it a blue color over here.
Okay.
And then if I'm doing a couple up here as a distant ancestor, I'll do a yellow and then include the great grandmother and then her birth years.
And if this is the relative, do you put the centimorgans in or anything like that?
Yes, if this person has done a DNA test, I do that. But
Okay.
this far back, they're not going to having done it. So I highlight this and I grab one of these arrows, and then I space this down, and then I change this name, and then I add the birth years, and this one's blue. And then if I hover over this, you can see a little blue arrow right here below this. And so then I hover on that blue arrow, hold down the control key, and then as I drag that, it will create another information. So here, if my father had tested, let's say that I have his birth years, and he shares 3,400 centimorgans just as a thing right here. And then I usually highlight this text, and here on the right side of the screen, I can change the font to a color, and I usually use red, and so that I know ones that I have DNA on. And then I can repeat that same process with the relatives, and build out this match with the colors, because what's important to me is also how many generations down. If I share 200 centimorgans with someone, are they a second cousin, or are they a second cousin once removed, or are they, which generation are they in? And by charting this helps me know what generation they fit into.
Mm.
And so let me open right here. This is one that I've been battling for 2 years. You get spoiled because a lot of the ones we solve in days.
Mm.
But this is one that's been going on for 2 years. So here I have all of these DNA matches that are descended from this couple right here, Noah Lee Carpenter and Elizabeth Fraser. And so those are all DNA matches from that. Here, there's DNA matches that come from Paul Slomkowski and Rosalia Marchinka. I'm not pronouncing that correct, but these are DNA matches on that. So I'm trying to figure out how the person ties into this family. And so I put in the DNA match levels here. Sometimes I'll put in notes how they relate to this person right here. So Harold has a high match level. So that's what um, you'll see the notes. And I'm just adding any notes. Sometimes I have ones here that I don't know how they fit in, but I have an idea on the age and where they might fit in.
But you have those in between generations there to remind you that they're younger.
Right, how their age might fit in. So here is the rest of this family. So this one is the Zartman Fraser family, and I'm pretty sure that this is the grandfather right here, this Raymond Fraser.
Mm-hmm.
And because I have matches on both of his father's and his mother's side, so I have matches on a bunch of these other ones. You can see the lines coming off here. So he had an illegitimate child, is my theory, in the late 40s or something. And I think that illegitimate child is the birth father. And that illegitimate child's mother would come from these other groups. And I don't know how they match together yet.
And so the green stands for
this is the person I'm doing the DNA research for.
Okay. And a theory person, let's see the yellow. What is
I do that as a couple.
Oh, as a couple,
so
that's right.
Yeah, like this one should have been a couple right here.
Okay.
And then I'm just gathering clues and more clues and more clues. And here's another another apple bucket of people that are part of this Zent Anderson Zent connection. And I've got DNA matches on both the Anderson side and the Zent side. So I would assume that I might be descended from this couple or one of their siblings that also married someone from the related family. So I have to keep my mind open for that.
And this is why you want to bring in someone to help you, because they can keep this in their head. And
no, I don't keep this in my head, but I have tools like this one right here. First of all, I add it to the research tree on Ancestry and research the heck out of the tree. And then I've tried to tie in the DNA matches. And then as I identify this common ancestor right here, so you see this ancestor right here, comes all the way down here, I research all the descendants that I can for this, because I'm hoping that one of these descendants might somewhere, like I'm trying to get this Slomkowski family, one of these other groups had to marry a descendant of the Slomkowski family. And so I'm going to research the descendants to see if I can get any clue on where these two clusters of families connected.
Finally tie in together.
Right. And then if they do, there's a good chance that I'm descended from that where they tie in together.
I know the DNA angels talked about how they can solve most of these problems within like 50% in a week and 75, or well, actually it was like 90% within a year. And they found that like the 10% that they have trouble with, usually it's because they're in Europe or a foreign country that doesn't have as much DNA databases available already. And so it becomes kind of
more challenging.
Yeah.
So this right here should be recent enough. So they're in the US.
Okay.
And so I'm just pulling clues everywhere I can so that I can find the missing piece. And then part of that is sometimes, this person who was adopted, their father was possibly adopted also, and was the grandmother somehow adopted also.
Oh,
So that adds complexity where it's not clear cut. So the first one, the gentleman who let me into his 23andMe, in less than an hour, I said, okay, this is too early to guess, but I think this is your mother, and it was. But I knew the mother's name within an hour.
an hour. Yeah.
The father took 2 weeks to figure out, and it
Wow.
turned out that they were high school. They dated in high school,
Okay.
and then she went off to college and had the child, but didn't inform the birth father.
Oh, wow.
Um, so, but you have those pieces, and we usually solve them super quick. So I get spoiled because usually within a week we have them solved.
Wow.
Yeah, Rick, this charting program that you've shown us is wonderful to keep track of stuff. It is so much easier to see visually the way
Right.
you've outlined this. It's
R-
great.
Yeah.
I'm
So
going to have to remember.
I've added these people to my ancestry tree. So ancestry helps me keep track of it, but I really want to know how this cluster fits together. And this makes it a very visual way that I can
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
And I give my
These are called drop down charts.
right.
In genealogy, and I've been wondering how you could make one up yourself. And gosh, here's the tool right here.
Right. And they offer this for free.
Yeah,
So
God, that's good.
as a way that they can market and hopefully pick up business that businesses would buy this.
Yeah,
But I'm taking advantage of it and I have for years.
So,
So,
so Rick, let's say you have someone you want to send a DNA kit to, that you have a name, but you don't have an email, you don't have an
okay.
address.
Okay,
How
good
do
idea.
you go into contacting those type of people?
So, first off, in Ancestry, when you search, you're going to find a lot of public records that may give you a city, may give you an age, a birth date, and so on. But when I'm searching people right here, I do two different things. And I'm thinking of a gentleman that I helped. He had a match show up, and the person did not use their real name in Ancestry. They used some name. Um, and so I did a Google search for that. And I found on the Google search that name showed up with a Pinterest and something else that gave me a clue. So it showed up in some Google search in some city, and then listed their name. So then here I can uh, put in. I use a site called truepeoplesearch.com.
Okay.
And these sites have a tendency to come and go, but until they decide to go 100% commercial where they're all charged for everything, you can take advantage of this. And any clues that you have here on the name or the city location, you can do a search, and then it will bring this back. And Clemenson's not a common name, so this is my dad, and so that's the benefit of not having a John Smith name type search. But if I can search for any clues, it would show me ages and then locations. And then when I click on that name, I can view the details. And then in here, it has a birth month and a year, current location. This is usually a current phone number. Sometimes it's a landline, but here's an address. And then here's possible phone numbers. A lot of these are no longer valid, but
Mhm.
it's worth making the phone call just in case they are.
And this
And
much is free then?
this treepeoplesearch.com is a free site.
Wow.
And then here's some possible email addresses. Again, most of them won't be current. Some previous addresses, possible relatives. A lot of times they'll bring up a spouse that lives at the same address, which is great. And then other family members. And so I can click on, this person, click on some of their family members, be adding this information to my tree, search on what ancestry shows me. And then that can be bringing up clues. And then I will always come back to Google searching. So I'm going to put in my father-in-law who passed away last December. Um, and he was in Provo. And so if I do a search, I might find an obituary that is either that person's obituary or where they're mentioned as a family member. And I love obituaries because they fill in a lot of the family pieces, and then I can look for that. And then I can also go to uh, Facebook and search for that name, because in Facebook, there may be a comment from a family member or for someone else that mentioned something. And I'm just looking for a way that I can add in pieces to give me a fuller picture of that person and figure out who they are.
Wow.
Rick,
Well,
do you ever use the Google proximity search?
I have not done that yet.
It
So I
it
need to
doesn't
learn.
always work, but I found it very handy. It's called the around. You
Okay.
put in, for example, a name at the start, and you can put it in quotation marks so you get exactly that name, and then capital AROUND, and then in parentheses how many words you want in between, like 10, and then a location, for example, or another name or something like that, and it will look for those two names or those two search terms combined in closer than 10 words.
Wow.
so that
Okay.
helps your search in Google then to
In
narrow
Google,
it
yes.
down, huh?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
called the around command. It's not
Around.
well
Okay.
known and it's not documented very well. And
No.
sometimes it doesn't work well, but it's worthwhile trying.
It's worth trying because you're just looking for one more clue.
Yep. Right. Yep. Yep.
And anything that you can find, birth year, name, location, where they've
Uh-huh.
lived.
Yep.
And the True People Search will sometimes give you family members. It tends to do the people that share the same name, where if a daughter's married with a married name, she wouldn't always show up as those possible relatives. So it's not perfect, but you're just getting clues.
Well, I found it very helpful, that proximity search, for looking for marriages, because if I know
Mm-hmm.
that a Snow married some other surname,
Right.
you could put that within 5 or 10. You can put it within 100 if you wanted to, and then it would be on the same page. But
Yep.
within 5 or 10, you know that there's so and so married so and so, and that shows up.
Yep. Great clue. But yeah, that's all. What you're doing is you're just gathering pieces from all the different places you can, all the clues that you can, and so that you can work down to try to find what you're missing.
Rick,
Okay.
could you go back to Jed Match, or I'm not sure which company it was that they had to heighten their security level, if that was Jed Match.
23 and Me had an issue
23
where,
and me, that's
yeah, and they people were looking at ethnicity and looking at shared matches and somehow trying to get into more sites too. And I'm not sure everything that they were doing. And so they backed off. A lot of the genealogy companies kind of took a step back until they tightened things up a little bit more. And so 23andMe, the customer I'm helping, or the person I'm helping, now has it locked down. So it sends her a text with a code. And then so I have to arrange with her to get into her 23andMe account, because it sends her a code that she emails me real quickly, and then I can get in. But GEDmatch is one where they accept data from a lot of different sites, and then but they limit you to just 5 when you're using the free version of GEDmatch. So you limit you to just 5 on that, and then you can it will bring up a list of the top matches. So this is her aunt. She shares 900 or half aunt or something, 906 centimorgans, and then she also shares xDNA right here with this relative. And so this can help you. And there's different tools on here where you can narrow down the search. Some of the different tools in this right here, you have the one to many, as we were just doing, relationship probability. These are the free tools. One to one, where it show you the exact segments that you match. The xDNA, the one to one xDNA. It will bring up a list of people that you both match, or people that neither of you, that only one of you matches. Are your parents related? And then they have some paid tools that go into even greater details. The triangulation is one that I enjoy, that helped me solve a case, because it showed me another person that shared the exact DNA segment, and they had come from a certain country in Europe. And so I was able to find the match through that, knowing that in the 1850s, the common ancestor had come through that country, Sweden, I think it was.
So do you have the individuals register for their own version of your
It
dead
depends
match?
on how competent, how comfortable they are. If they send me the zip file that they download from Ancestry, I can get it uploaded to Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, and GEDmatch for them and send them the login information for each of those. And then here on this, I can manage this user account and I can transfer the kit to them. So if they go through and set up their own account in GEDmatch at some point, I could put in their email account that they're set up as and transfer this kit over to them. Even though the kit's transferred to them, I would still be able to run all the reports on it. But sometimes the new person, some of the people just share their Ancestry sign in. And if they're a new person, I say, okay, go through and create an Ancestry password that you're comfortable sharing. And they share that with me, and I can get in, create the tree for them, link their DNA to the tree, do invite myself to their DNA and to their tree. So I can do a lot of the steps in the background for them. Okay.
Did you,
So
to learn how to do this, did you use YouTube videos or are you just,
no, this was 10 years ago.
yeah,
And so
you've just
there weren't,
grown with it, huh?
yeah, just growing with it. And then there's other people that are sharing um, answers questions. And then I've worked with other groups as we've been dealing with common issues, and they're sharing tricks with me and so on. And I
Wow.
share clues with them.
It sounds like you use the DNA Pro and have been using it and that have
No,
you,
that's a new feature,
the
and
new feature,
I turned it on because I was going to be teaching this class.
because you're going to teach this class. So you haven't felt you had to use it for your other
It just
reason.
came out a very short time ago. So
Okay.
it's a new feature that Ancestry added to create revenue.
I know they have a YouTube video about it, how they found that there were a lot of tools they would like to create, but they just didn't have the additional revenue to do that. So
Okay,
um,
I'm not
yeah,
buying not having the
not buying
additional
it.
revenue.
Okay.
So they
Yeah.
wanted additional revenue, and
Yeah.
so they had to have things that they could sell. So
They could sell.
uh,
Yeah.
but it's a great, the thing is that 23andMe and MyHeritage already offered that information for free.
Okay. Okay.
And so Ancestry was been very far behind in that, but they're also trying to figure anything they can do to generate extra revenue.
Okay.
So, I'm not very happy with them,
No.
but I appreciate the tool.
Right. Right.
Uh,
So
Rick, oh,
go ahead. No, Tom.
go ahead. You go ahead, ask your question. I'll ask mine later.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Well, my question relates to AI with this. AI is sometimes referred to as large language models because it checks the search terms against big databases of information until it finds the terms, and then it says, oh, these terms are related because they're close by here. I'm wondering how much of this sort of thing, of the DNA and of what Ancestry has and so on, becomes uh, testable, becomes something that they test against on that, or is that completely separate so that it's not tested against that at all?
So I'm very interested, and I don't know how they had you sort by parent. And so, like when you view your matches, it's either paternal or maternal. That is great. What if they took that the next step? And so, right here, I'm getting maternal, paternal. What if they took that the next step and created some of these groups for us, these buckets? And so here you have this cluster of 10 people that are part of your maternal group, but they're all related and they share this common ancestor. So just the things that I'm doing manually and have done for years, what if the ancestry took this to the next level and created these buckets and said, okay, this bucket seems to all be descended from this person.
Well, that'd be worthwhile, but I'm wondering if AI would do that for you now.
Not that I'm aware of, because right here we'd have to get in and you'd somehow have to feed the data that Don here shares, 874 with me, but when I click on the shared matches with Dawn, it would have to somehow have access into Ancestry and then gather all of these tools that we talked about, all the matches on all the different sites, and knows that, okay, Dawn only shares this much with my son because she's first cousin once removed, and this is her aunt. It would have to have access to those tools. And Ancestry or the different companies are going to be the gatekeepers to that data.
Yeah, but that's what I'm wondering about. How much of this is public so that the large language models check against this?
It's not public. Yeah.
The privacy, yeah, that's what I'll terrify.
That's the big question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you do this stuff, if any of this eventually gets into the place where it becomes such that it can check against it. One of the things we worry about in AI is don't put anything personal in there, because it will become whatever your prompt is. It will become part of the thing that they will check against later.
Right.
The other problem with AI is that it makes assumptions that it will show as reality, whereas Rick continually is questioning himself if this is the truth or not. And
all AI things warn you about that. They say this might be accurate, and don't take this. Check it out.
But part of that, but part of this also is Ancestry has this where you have the, let me try to find right here, common ancestor. I'm trying to, so right here, Ancestry has this, where you can view the through lines. Through lines is very much based on what the trees that the other people submitted that may or may not be accurate. And so this is an example where it's trying to do some of that AI stuff for you. This has been out for a number of years, but again, it's limited by the truth that that person has in their tree, and it may or may not be true.
You have to check it, but
you have to
even AI does pick up things in Family Search. I've had it find people in Family Search and actually give me the information. So some of, even though Family Search is still private, it still shows up in some of these.
Yep, it would make sense. But this DNA amount, the companies hold on to tightly because they don't want to share it out. But GEDmatch, that's part of the concern with GEDmatch is, okay, here's this, I'm pulling this up, but Timber, right here, when I do the same thing, I can pull this up, get the exact same report from Timber's perspective and see all the DNA that Timber shares with these individuals. So here's the half sister that had tested on Ancestry. So this is how we showed that they were half sisters. But yes, if AI got loose in here, they would be able to put a lot of possible pieces together. But at the same time, if GEDmatch incorporated AI, it might be able to do a lot of that work for you. Or if Ancestry, just like in their through trees, did it, Ancestry could improve the quality of data and the hints that they're giving to you. So instead of AI, just general information, I expect the genealogy companies to trying to find ways to use it to improve the product that they're selling and the services they're providing.
Yeah, and Ancestry is using AI now on various things, like handwriting. They can convert handwriting to text and so on with AI.
So
go ahead.
If we had someone who was just getting started, okay, and you're helping them, so kind of some simple steps you would have them do is what, first of all, test themselves with DNA.
And I'd also help them create a tree.
Create a tree.
And then what I have them do is start at their very first match. Okay. And so when they go into their DNA match, the very first match has a high probability of being a family member that they know.
Okay.
And so here, if they have a cut, here's siblings, but if you have a match that you know, and you can start learning about centimorgans and the percentage shared.
Okay. And so then they're just learning the terminology They're learning the site. They're learning what they're looking at. Okay.
Right. And they're also learning to start trusting. Okay, I know Dawn is my first cousin.
Okay.
Dawn shares 874 centimorgans, 13% DNA. What does that mean? So 874 teaches me what? And then when I click on Dawn, there's a relationship predictor right here and edit relationship. And I've already filled this in and said that, this is my maternal first cousin, but it's going to have a guesstimate for them. And they could fill this in and start learning how to use the basics with relatives that they know.
And
So that,
start creating their little buckets then too.
right.
Okay.
And then a lot of times we want the bucket further down. So it talked about going down to 400 centimorgan
Okay.
because that way, if I started with my dad and did a bucket, half my matches would just be in that bucket because they're on my paternal side.
Okay.
And so, but you'd start down lower, and if you know one of these relatives and know how they're related, then you could do that to add the match.
Okay.
And so practice with the easy ones, because then when you come up with the one that you don't know how they fit in, you have familiarity to know, like here when Christopher Hale shows up, okay, 251 centimorgans, what does that mean? Okay, well, he's on my maternal side because I've already divided that. What else can I know? But I've already practiced on easy ones
Okay.
before I
Okay.
try to figure out Christopher Hale.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then, so then once they've mastered ancestry, then help them to move over to the other sites later
It
because they've got
depends.
the vocabulary and they've got
Uh-huh.
their trees and they understand what they're looking for. Okay.
Well, usually that's just the introduction, the basis. Then the question comes back, okay, this is what you know.
Okay.
What do you want to learn?
What do you want to learn? Right.
And that's going to drive what their next step is. So the first thing is, okay, I want to know more about genealogy DNA. Okay, so here's your beginning course that you go through, just learning the basics. Now you know the basics. What do you want to learn?
Right.
And then you direct them based on what they want to learn.
Okay. So I have a dead end that's a John Brown.
Oh, love that name.
Yeah, yeah. And there's 23 of them in the county. And
Okay.
yeah, so
So what you would do, and I did this once in Norway. I helped one of my friends.
Yeah.
There were 17 females that came from Norway that had that name that could have given birth to a child in 1875.
Okay.
And so I researched all 17 of those people and built their trees upwards and downwards
Okay.
for those 17 people. And most of them stayed in Norway and were still there for the Norwegian 1880 census. So they weren't the ones I was after. And I was able to identify the correct one who happened to come from the same home district that the birth father came from, even though they didn't connect in until they got to Minnesota in the 1870s.
Wow.
But I was able to take those 17 people and narrow it down to the one correct one.
Wow.
So it's a lot of work sometimes.
Wow.
And my grandmother told me that she had a Waghorn cousin in Ellsworth, Wisconsin. And so I researched all the Waghorns in Ellsworth, Wisconsin, built their trees upwards and downwards, and I couldn't figure out the connection. And turns out that it was actually a first cousin once removed. And so as I was writing to someone and saying, what's your brother's address? They clarified, they gave me one more clue, and I was able to find the connection, and it took my other research back another generation than what I had it.
Wow. So one of the things is you're talking about this huge amount of work. I'm thinking that you kind of need to have a running buddy or a coach or somebody that helps you stay engaged until you find the answer. Do you find that true, or do you feel that your parents, that connection with them has provided that for you?
Yeah, fortunately, my parents deal with our tree, so I don't deal with it at all, except when they have a surprise person pop up and then they send it over to me. I've worked in groups in the past, usually with someone where we're solving a mystery that we're both working on.
Ah,
So, but when you're first starting, having a mentor, a genealogist that you could run questions by, but not expecting them to do all the work because they have other projects they're working on, but they could point you in the right direction or tell you to look at this or have you considered this.
Okay. This is so valuable. I think I got my price of admission today.
I'm
Good.
sure we all did. Are there any other questions that anybody has?
Don, we can't quite hear you.
It sounded like you're distant from your microphone, Don.
Are there any other questions that anybody has?
Yeah.
And I don't know if people are watching on Facebook, if there's any questions coming through there, and they could paste them to the chat window.
People are watching on Facebook, but I don't see any posted questions.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, we've had some great questions internally that have covered a lot of information.
One of the questions that was there earlier is there a handout for your discussions today?
No, unfortunately, I don't have one. I have some instructions.
That's all right.
On how to load your DNA, but usually I'm working one-on-one with people. So
well, it'll be on YouTube, and YouTube automatically closed captions it. So it'll all be on there summarized.
Great.
Wonderful. Well, any other questions then, or anything else before? Or Rick, do you have anything else to add before we finish?
No, just start the journey and practice on close relatives. So you learn how to read your DNA results, and then you will find people that you can help because you know more, you know how to read the DNA results, and you can answer mysteries for them. And it's been very, very fulfilling to help people learn their truth.
It's a wonderful new tool, though, and it's all since I started with genealogy. All this is brand new. And it's wonderful things. And we appreciate all the work you've gone to prepare your classes for today, Rick. Yeah, that was no small trick to do this all.
Yep, glad to help out.
Wonderful. Okay, well, if there are any other last minute questions before we finish up. Okay, let me just summarize then as this is the Utah Valley Technology and Genealogy Group, our regular second Saturday of the month meeting. We've just had the class period taught by Rick Klemetson and or Klemetson, and he says he pronounces it both ways. And then this is the class. He did a presentation earlier, which will also be on our YouTube channel, on the DNA. Is your tree correct? Showing illustrations where you think your tree is correct, but then you find because of DNA that there are parts that may not be correct. This has been very helpful and good information for us. So we'll sign off now, and we'll turn the time back over to Jerry Castillo, who's our host for today. Thanks, Jerry. We appreciate you taking care of the hosting today for us.